What do you think people get wrong about reinvention? Like, what is it that the people who fail to turn their life around do?
I think people think it's a magic trick. They snap their fingers, they make a decision, and their life is different overnight. I think there's a lack of appreciation of everything that goes into the moment where you change your mind and you do something different. And then all of the work that goes in to that rebuilding phase and the aftermath of making that decision that ultimately creates the new life. I think people are impatient. They want results too quickly. They don't appreciate the amount of hard work that goes into actually crafting the life of your desires. And I think as a result of that, when they don't see results immediately, they burn out and retreat to what's safe and what they know versus welcoming failure, welcoming uncertainty, getting comfortable with risk, and remaining persistent in their vision to create something more in alignment with their authentic self.
I think one of the big problems, especially when it comes to reinvention, is in the Rocky movies, the montage of training is 2.5 minutes long. In reality, it can be a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think getting really visceral with what tough times feel like helps people who are going through them to not feel so personally cursed while they're going through them.
That's why we love personal stories. We love hearing stories of people who met a certain fate and figured out how to rebuild their life. I think there is something infectious about that does give people hope for themselves. But I think you're correct. When you look in the rearview mirror, everything looks like it lined up perfectly to create this situation where I'm sitting across from you right now. But I can tell you, as somebody who has weathered more than a few large personal changes in my life, it is a very confusing, protracted time, and it takes a lot longer than people realize. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of judgment from other people. If you're breaking outside of a social expectation or a familial expectation, if you're trying something new, your peers, your friends are going to look at you a little bit differently. Perhaps they're not going to be as supportive as you might have expected. So there's a loneliness, I think, that is part of it as well. And I think with that is this testing process around your level of willingness, around your level of trust in yourself. And it's like being burned in a cauldron. Like I've said many times, like, if you're going to be a phoenix, you have to burn first. And I don't know if there's an end run around that burning process, because that is the process that, creates the new version of yourself. It's almost mandatory that one goes through their version of that. So I've been tested financially, emotionally, mentally, physically. And I think I'm wired for it as a result of my background, the way I was raised, my experiences in swimming. I feel like I'm well equipped to kind of handle that, but I've been brought to my knees more than once. And I can tell you, in those moments, all you feel is fear and this overpowering impulse to retreat back to what you know. And it is in those moments, those are the moments of truth that no one sees, where you're at your breaking point. And that's where faith comes in, honestly. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be able to hold that vision for the better life of your aspirations. And you have to also have an almost transcendent self. You have to have an almost transcendent sense of some other force at play that has your best interest at heart, such that if your heart is true and you are truly engaged in the process of trying to align your actions with your values, and you have excavated your soul and done the interior work to try to really get honest with yourself, and you're earnest in that regard, I do believe that the universe will at some point conspire to support you. It's not going to be on your timeline. It's not going to be convenient. the results aren't going to look like you think they're going to look. But I've seen this play out in my life many times and in the lives of many people that I'm close with.
One of the challenges, especially when it comes to reinvention, is you're fighting an uphill battle. It's the most difficult time, and you have the least amount of evidence to have faith in yourself. You've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
You've never actually stuck to the diet for 7 days. You've never actually been able to go sober or stay loyal to a partner or turn up on time to a job, pick whatever it is, or take it all the way up to the top. You've never been able to truly have a difficult conversation with somebody, at your business. You've never really been able to sit down with your business partner at this big company that you've built for 15 years and tell them that this isn't working. You've kind of sort of nudged towards it and blah, blah, blah. Reinvention, I think, happens on really small and really large scales.
Well, it happens small until it happens big. The reinvention occurs in the micro actions that you're taking every single day. The tiny little things that perhaps no one even notices that are creating muscle memory around new behaviors that perhaps are very uncomfortable to you. Like, hey, I'm going to engage with this person in a different way than I usually do by being more direct or more honest, or I'm going to put down a boundary, or I'm going to say no to this and yes to this. Tiny little things repeated over time is what produces dramatic change. And it's like this curve, it's like this very slow curve until it asymptotes up. And everyone wants to talk about the pivot moment when it goes skyward. But the truth is the real work is in the drudgery.
Correct.
And the difficult anonymous work of shoveling shit every single day. In sobriety, they say, don't leave before the miracle. And I take that as a lesson in persistence. Whatever it is that you're pursuing to achieve or create or express in the world, I think a lot of people back out before that happens. And I think right now, you're a perfect example of this. You're experiencing this with your show. You're having some large growth at the moment. And I think you even shared something about the fact that you've been doing this for a very long time. And most people may have backed out a long time ago, backed out before the miracle occurs or the growth spurt or whatever it is. So for me, it always comes back to perseverance, persistence, high pain tolerance, an ability to suffer through discomfort, a welcoming of doing hard things, and willingness, really, and that's a lesson that I learned in sobriety. Sobriety isn't for people that need it, it's for people that want it. And one of the first things someone will be asked when they enter the kind of ecosystem of recovery is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do different? How willing are you? Are you willing to make this your number one priority? And a lot of people will put words to that, but only time will tell whether those words are followed up by the action that demonstrates the level of willingness that is required to actualize anything of meaning in this world. With respect to Naval's quote, the only pushback I would give to that is this idea that that one is deserving or that one is entitled to anything. You're not entitled to anything. You don't necessarily deserve anything. All you have control over is how you direct your attention and how you comport yourself. What are the actions that you're taking, how you're responding to the world around you. And when you drill that down into the tiniest little things that you're doing every single day and try to repeat that with just rigorous, relentless consistency, that is how you move mountains. That's how you build mountains. That's how you change your life. And that is not something that's going to trend on Twitter. It's not sexy. There's nothing sexy about it. It fucking sucks. And I wish it wasn't that way. And throughout all of my reinventions and the changes that I've made in my life, I didn't do them willingly. I did them because I was in so much fucking pain that I was boxed into a corner and felt like the only way out was through. In other words, when the pain of my circumstance exceeded the tremendous amount of fear that I was harboring about doing something different, doing something that would change the outcomes. Because if you're doing something in a certain way and you're always getting the same outcome, another recovery trope, that's the very definition of addiction, right? Like until you start doing things differently, you're always going to get the same result. And yet we're so calcified around who we are and what we're doing, and this is my identity, and this is who I am, that it becomes very difficult to break free of that and to live in a more fluid state where you are in the process of always trying to deconstruct the beliefs that you hold, and really get honest with yourself about the fallacy of the identity that you hold so dear.